Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers with Linda Prio. Will it be possible to remain in my home as I age? Do I feel safe in my home? How do I figure out how much support I will need when my health needs start to change? What if I decide to move into a community instead? Which community will meet my needs now and in the future? Who will play a role in helping me with decision making? Do you ask yourself these same questions? Aging in Place Strategies and Answers can help you gain practical knowledge that will help you create your own Aging in Place roadmap. If you are already a care partner, a power of attorney, or in crisis mode with your Aging in Place strategy, you will learn what you need to know that you don't know. For over 20 years, I have been marketing Aging in Place services to clients and educating families and healthcare professionals in how to put aging in place strategies into place. When you utilize aging in place, you are allowed to choose where you want to live and make those decisions so that you can retain your quality of life. Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers podcast. And today I have the privilege of being with Mary Schmidt, who is a Senior Vice President from TI Trust, or the name of their company is True Integrity Fiduciary Services. Mary, how long have you worked for TI Trust?
I've been with TI Trust for the last 12 years, and our team it came over from a previous employer back in 2007. So that was another 7 years. So almost 20 years our team has been together working.
That is awesome. Well, for those of you that do not know TI Trust, they are a nationally recognized fiduciary service leader. As an independent, employee-owned trust company, they provide comprehensive personal trust services, retirement plans, and farm services. Their dedicated team of professionals who've been together a long time are committed to meeting the unique needs of both trusts and beneficiaries of those trusts. And they believe that people matter, integrity matters, community matters, and excellent matters. And they tailor their approach to suit their clients' specific requirements. Well, with a mission statement like that, Mary, I can understand why you've been with them for a long time. And I do want to thank you for being with me today. It is really a special privilege to learn more about what a trust officer does, the responsibility of a trust beneficiary operation like TI Trust. So I'm excited about what our listeners are going to learn today. Can you share how you began your education, your professional career, and then some reasons why you've been a trust officer so long?
Sure. Well, after many years of experience in operations of a bank-owned trust department, I moved into being a trust officer, and that put me in a role of managing the administration of trusts. That included customer contact, bill pay, asset management, asset distribution, tax processing, etc. So a lot of different aspects to being a trust administrator. And I have been with it so long because I just love my job. And I love helping and serving others in getting through hard and difficult financial situations.
And I know that's one of the reasons why I've stayed in my career as long as I have, is because it is a feel good when you have answers and solutions that can help people navigate the process. And people who've been listening to me for a while understand that I am giving them a broad brushstroke on a lot of different topics because professional solutions talking to professionals, knowing different parts of the aging process are going to benefit them. But it's never just one person who's going to help us get there. So coming very soon, listeners, I have created a podcast that will provide some additional education regarding trust services. And as you know, in most every episode of my podcasts, I encourage proactive planning rather than reactive planning. Naturally, when things become complicated and people start to age, it is sometimes hard to start the decision-making process. However, succession plans and asset planning is a key to successful aging in place. It is also key to create the future that you have spent your life and your career working for. So please seek out your financial advisor, your attorney, an accountant, whoever, maybe even your bank who is in charge of managing your assets or helping you with those decisions. And then it might be likely that they might refer you to a trust operation similar to TI Trust. Mary, is there a typical client that seeks a trust company, or do you serve a wide demographic of clients?
We serve a very wide demographic of clients, a wide range. We offer services to individuals who need help managing their finances, those who may want a professional fiduciary, which is someone who steps into their place and does things based on the best thing for them. Those with special needs, busy professionals, and individuals who travel or they just don't want to be burdened by paperwork.
That sounds awesome. I think there's probably people listening today who would appreciate all that. I think of young people who are running here and there with all their kids Monday through Sunday, and how crazy that is if somebody could take something off their plate.
That's right.
But that fiduciary role is a pretty big deal. And when Mary and I were sitting and talking, I was telling her how I had to become the fiduciary for my mother when she received her VA services. And I remember signing on the line that this is what I needed to do. I felt a huge responsibility. I also needed to account for the way the funds were being spent, and then any accompanying paperwork that would need to be given. So that fiduciary responsibility is an ethical, serious responsibility, not one that you take on lightly,
Correct.
Right?
That is correct.
And as a fiduciary, they will be responsible for reviewing documents you're going to be bringing to them.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. All right. So I have never, ever talked to a trust officer before. So if I was a person that was coming to your company and I was interested in pursuing a relationship with you, what questions should I be asking you?
How do we name your company in our documents? So if you have a trust document and say you are your own trustee and you want to name someone after you, but may not have a family member or a friend to do that, and you wanted a trust company to serve that role, then you would say, how do I name that company in my documents? Who will I be working with on my trust?
Okay.
Do I get a 1-800 number to call, or do I get an individual who is going to know my situation?
Okay, that's a good question.
How will you communicate with me? Do we have to do everything by email? Do I get to talk to someone? Is it by Zoom meetings? But how will we communicate with each other?
Good question.
Do you answer questions and educate clients and beneficiaries? So if I had a question about what a certain paragraph meant, what that meant in my document, could someone explain that to me, or would I have to go to someone else to get that education?
Good. Because we don't always understand the documents that would have been created.
It's true.
I get that.
True. Some of the legal jargon is kind of hard to understand.
Thank you.
Is investment management included in your services?
Okay.
So that's good. You want to know that there's not a two-part, that those services are separated.
Correct.
And what are your fees? What do you charge for your services?
Good. Those are some good preliminary questions that will help guide some conversations that people are going to want to have. So thank you for sharing that. Now, on the other side, the flip side, when you're sitting in the other chair as the trust officer or the senior vice president, what are some preliminary questions a trust company or a trust department might ask a potential client?
Sure. So we would ask, do you have executed estate planning documents? For example, do you have a trust that's already in place? Have you had a will drawn up? Do you have medical powers of attorney, financial powers of attorney? So documents like that. And what assets are owned by your trust? Do you own other assets outside of your trust? What are your goals for the funds in your trust? What do you want them to do? What are the duties that you need help with? So is it bill pay? Do you need help paying your bills? Do you need help managing your money? Do you want nothing to do with it? You want to turn it over to someone else to take care of it? So those are the questions that a trust company would be asking.
Wonderful. That really helps a lot. So Mary, could it be that as you're doing this discovery, I might say, well, I don't mind paying my bills and doing all that right now, but there might be a time where I would want you to do that. Can you do that? And so can you retain some of that control, or do you kind of give that all over?
Sure. We have an array of different types of accounts where you can have basically a custodial type of account where a trust company could hold all of your assets, but you would retain control as trustee of your trust and investment manager, and we would just take direction from you. Then we have fiduciary agency accounts where we could do the investment management, but you could stay in control as the trustee. And then we offer being a co-trustee on a trust or a sole trustee. So there is an array of accounts that you could move through depending on what you wanted the trust company to do.
Which I think is awesome because, many times we start in one place and we end up in another place mentally or physically. So it's nice that you can do that and change with us as those needs changed. Somebody was telling me recently, I think it was an attorney I was talking to, that people create their trust, but they never put anything in that trust.
Yes.
Do you ever see that?
Sometimes we do.
Okay.
Sometimes we do. And that is, if you don't put your assets into the trust, then they're going to have to go through probate to get to whom you want them to get to. So it is an advantage to the client to put them in the trust if you've drawn up a trust.
Now, my listeners are used to me, Mary, telling about professional services. Okay. So we can try it ourselves. We can do the do-it-yourself plan and make some mistakes along the way. Some of those might be more costly. I don't like to waste time or money. Those are my pet peeves. And so in my career, I've just learned that professional services can be valuable. My husband's father was a golf professional, and his attitude is one I am trying to move into as I age. And that is, other people need to make money too.
Yes.
So I am happy to help them in their business models. So I am just telling you that professional advice is valuable. It's worthwhile. And while we often think sometimes, oh, I can do that, we step in the middle of it and realize we're lost. So just know that there is guidance along the way, and retaining some of your responsibility or things that you want to do, your control, you can definitely do when you're working with a trust company. So I appreciate that. What is the fee range that a trust company might charge to administer the trust?
Ours is anywhere from about 1 to 1.5% annually, based on the value of the assets that are in the trust.
Okay. And do you feel like some trust companies charge more than that, or?
Yes, some trust companies charge more. I don't think there's many that charge less than we do, but
I agree. My research has told me the same thing, Mary. So you are spot on as usual. Is that I just want to go back to one thing because this is something that we don't often think about. But I have two people that I know that own farmland. And so figuring out that piece can be very challenging. So I noticed on your website for TI Trust that you actually offer farm services. So for those of you that might be listening, Mary, what does that mean, farm services?
Right. Within our personal trust division, we have a farm services division, and they manage farms for people who landowners, but they may not want to be involved in the daily farm services, I should say, or farm duties. Then they also offer appraisal services and brokerage services. So that is that those are all within our farm services group.
And that's really nice that they have them because in both of these situations that I have friends, one, it's taxes, it's the assessment of the land value, it's creating a succession plan. Like people are coming to them, I want the land, but if you don't do it properly, you could really make some mistakes. In the other situation, it's more of the land is appreciated. How do we manage that so that the beneficiary is not on the hook for paying these taxes? Correct. So didn't that sound confusing to you listeners? Because just unpeeling this and unpacking this with Mary this morning in our pre-conversation, I'm like, wow, we are in some deep water here. But that's what the trust departments and trust officers and trust companies are there to you. They're there to provide that guidance to you. A minimum number of dollar amount on those assets. So do trust companies say in their preliminary conversations, can you guesstimate your amount of assets for us? Or
so some trust companies, they have a minimum amount that they will accept. We do not. We just look at an account on a case-by-case basis to see if our fee makes sense for that account.
Wonderful. Thank you. So you just heard what she said. So now you know. And so research is beneficial, but certainly those are some key things to ask. And then to gather your information so that when you're visiting with your trust officer that you have the documents in your hands and have thought through some of the things that Mary and I have talked about. Mm-hmm. Mary, you've been in this career field for a long time professionally. You've talked to a lot of different people. And so I was just curious what one tip from your experience as a trust officer that you would share with us today.
Well, I would say don't wait to inquire about estate planning documents. You want to get them in place before health has an impact on your ability to execute them. For some reason, a lot of people wait thinking I'll do that later. But making sure that like powers of attorneys, things like that are up to date and are valid, is very important. So I would say that's a professional tip.
Mm-hmm. And in Mary's career as well as mine, and I just released a podcast that talked about financial abuse, as well as other forms of abuse, neglect, self-determination, because June is National Abuse Awareness Month. But, there are some people that really cannot manage funds. And everybody has family. And those that don't have family are trying to figure out the best solution. So in your career too, have you seen where people have not been good money managers?
Yes. We've seen a lot of situations where people want to protect those that they love. but they do recognize that they can't manage money, or they're being taken advantage of, or there's an addiction or something that they want to protect them from. And that is where a trust company could come in and manage those financial matters so that families can be families, that they can have those relationships instead of being burdened by financial ones that could cause family dissension.
Absolutely. My mom and dad had a really close friend, and they were so much fun. And I remember after the husband died, and he died suddenly, my mother had told me, she said, "Oh, my friend is getting remarried." And I thought, oh, okay, well, he's been gone. That would be a natural conclusion. She is interested in, being with somebody else at this particular time in her life. They had a son, I believe, and he wasn't really involved very closely with the family. And, interestingly enough, as time went forward, my mother had told me that her first husband, had put everything into a trust for her. And it worked out to her advantage. She may not have liked it very much, but the person that she ended up marrying wanted access to her trust, and he could not get it. And so even after death, there was a provision of care for his wife. But like Mary said, removing that whole financial piece is such a big deal. Now let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Which would you rather spend per month, 4,000 to 6,000, and live in an assisted living community, or less than $60 a month and remain at home? The electronic caregiver is a safety device that can help you remain safe in your home in both medical and safety situations. Electronic caregiver can have many options that can be tailored to the needs of the individual, giving you peace of mind. Electronic caregiver is available nationwide. Let's talk. Cheryl Wilson, 314-283-0943.
Now let's return to the podcast. Responsibility of the trust is to then meet with the beneficiaries of the trust. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. A lot of times, beneficiaries may or may not be aware of the plan that their loved ones put in place to benefit them. And there's a lot of education that needs to happen because they were not aware of what the trust said, or what the provisions of the trust are, or how they get money, or how they can benefit from it. So all of those guidelines are set up in the trust, and those have to be conveyed to the beneficiaries at that time.
Wonderful. So you don't have to be a millionaire to have a trust. And, because I think about all the dramas that we watch when everybody's reading the will. So you don't have to do that, but it is wise to start thinking about how you want this to look based on your particular situation, but also based on the recommendation that you might be getting from your accountant, your banker, your financial planner, or your attorney. Before we wrap up today, Mary, I know that you probably have a caregiver tip from your own experience that you can offer us today. What might that be?
Well, I'm from a large family. There's 5 children, and I know that there are a lot of family dynamics, family responsibilities, along with financial responsibilities. And I would say to separating those responsibilities makes things a lot easier and more manageable, and it definitely helps preserve family relations.
Yes, I agree with Mary. There's usually a good shopper in the family who doesn't mind going to the store and getting everything. There's somebody who loves to do the financial stuff. Somebody likes to take over the medical piece and set the medications and make sure that they have the medicines and set up in the planner so they're taking the right medicine, but relationships. And that's what we've been talking about today. So never too soon to reach out to trust companies and start making some inquiries. We thank Mary and TI Trust for letting her spend this time with us today. I hope that it has been as valuable to you as it has been to me. And I look forward to being with my listeners again soon. And thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today. Please remember that this podcast is intended as guidance and not advice. Share this podcast with friends and family who are currently in crisis mode or with people who would like to start developing their own roadmap for aging in place. Listeners, if you would like a deeper dive into a topic discussed during a podcast, please subscribe to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers, where you will be able to access premium content. Or if you would like to suggest a topic for this podcast, please contact me at linda.agingstrategies@gmail.com. As always, I value the time you spend with me.